it's good to know you can join us on our program today, The Exclusive, and I'll quickly just introduce my guest today to grace our screen, and I'm sure you'll be happy to know that I'm having the Barrister Abraham Yisa, who is the Registrar, Church of Nigeria, Anglican Communion, in the studio. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, sir.
Yes.
Yes, we'll be talking with Barrister Yisa, who is the Registrar, Church of Nigeria, on issues bordering about the Church of Nigeria, legal issues. I'm trying to be careful so that I will not say anything that I will be sent to the court. So let's start with this quickly, sir. Can we just meet you to tell us about yourself, your background, schools you've attended, and how God has helped you thus far, sir?
Yeah, we give glory to God.
Yes,
my name, as you know, Abraham Ndana Yisa. I'm from Niger State.
Okay,
I was born in a small community in Niger State called Faji on the 23rd of October 1953. My early childhood, the first few years, about 5 or 6 years, was spent with my parents in Faji. I am the last of a family of 5. I have 5 sisters and the only boy, and the last.
Okay.
So I was with my parents, who were farmers, and my father was the traditional ruler of our community. Until I was about 6. I left the village in 1959 to join my elder sister, Mrs. Ararangulu, the wife of the first registrar of Jamb.
Okay.
The eldest in our family, and she decided to take me to join her in Bida, the famous St. John's Anglican Primary School, Bida. It was the only one around the entire, what you now call Niger State then. And it was a very prestigious school. She was a teacher in that school. So I came to St. John's in 1959, and I was in St. John's until 1966, when I gained admission into also famous St. Paul's College, Usasa, Zaria. It was a very rare opportunity in those days, especially in the north, to go to schools like St. Paul's, schools like Gindri, schools like Barewa College, what is now known as Barewa College, and so on. So it was a rare privilege, but predominantly Anglican. It was an Anglican institution, and a large number of the students were actually Anglican children from all over Nigeria, the east, the west, the north. And we had a good mix of students. So I was in St. Paul's from 1966 to 1971.
Okay.
In 1971, I went to Ahmadu Bello University. The School of Basic Studies was just established. I think we were either the second or third set of that school. And it took the place of HSC, the Higher School Certificate.
Okay.
And well, if you had the opportunity to go to School of Basic Studies, which is already in a university, it means you were already a student in the university. And so I was in the School of Basic Studies from 72 to 73. And in 1973, I went to the Faculty of Law of the same university to read law. I graduated in 1976 and proceeded to the law school in Lagos.
Okay.
From 76 to 77. I was called to the bar and registered in the Supreme Court on the 1st of July, 1977. After the law school, I did the mandatory NYSC. I started at the Institute of International Affairs, where I worked with Professor Bolaji Akinyemi and late the one-time governor of Kano State was the administrative secretary, Abubakar Rimi. Okay. Was then the administrative secretary. But I changed to the Legal Aid Council because I was eager to practice law, whereas my assignment in the institute was more of academic and administrative. Okay. So with permission, I went to the Legal Aid Council in the same Lagos, and I worked with Mrs. Balogun, Harriet Balogun, a very famous mother. And so my first experience going to court, the first was under Mrs. Balogun, when she would pick all of us, myself, including Senator Daisy Danjuma. We did NYC in the same office, and take us to court. We visited prisons and did a lot of work for legal. We were the very first set of lawyers to work with Legal Aid Council. Then 78, upon completion of my National Youth Service, I returned to Niger State and joined the Niger State Ministry of Justice as a state counsel. I rose to the level of Deputy Solicitor General. It's like Deputy PAMSEC. But in 1982, I left the ministry to establish my own private legal firm called Summit Chambers. Okay. And I've been in Summit Chambers up till now. Wow. But of course, I've branched off to do a lot of ad hoc. I've been chairman of Election Appeals Tribunal for both Niger and Federal Capital Territory here. Okay. I've also served as chairman of the National Census Tribunal. Okay. I also have served as chairman of Tax Appeal Tribunal. And before that, I was chairman of Value-Added Tax Tribunal in Kaduna. Then that tribunal was expanded for just handling value-added tax cases to all taxes, and that's why it became Tax Appeal Tribunal, replacing what they used to call Body of Appeal Commissioners that was performing that function before. And I served in Jos, North Central Zone, for 6 years. Then in the church, of course, you know, I'm Anglican, inside out, upside down, from birth to training to this thing. I was first assistant registrar of the old Diocese of Kaduna. That diocese is the one that was there and now covers about 20 or 30 dioceses now, because when dioceses were created, they split. But I was assistant registrar there. Yeah. Okay. And then in 1990, during the decade of evangelism, under Archbishop Adetiloye, several dioceses were created. One of them was Mina Diocese. Okay. And I became the first chancellor of that diocese. And indeed, since 1990, I have been the chancellor of Mina Diocese.
Oh, up till now.
Up till now. Actually, that is my that is my home.
Your home, yeah.
But then, as chancellor of the diocese, I had been representing the diocese in the Standing Committee of Church of Nigeria and General Synod in this last 20, since 1990, I've been there. And it's in the course of it that in 2005, I was elected registrar of the Church of Nigeria at the Standing Committee in Kaduna. The same year in September, the General Synod in Enugu, in Onitsha, confirmed my appointment. The election was done in 2005, February, to fill the vacancy created as a result of the death of Sagiwa Amu, who was the registrar before me. And so I was elected to fill the vacancy, but now properly confirmed by the General Synod in Onitsha, the same 2005. Okay. And I've been registrar since then.
So that's spanning for like 14 years now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, you've taken us through a long... Let me ask, 14 years as registrar for Church of Nigeria, what has been the challenges?
First of all, in 1979, we were 16 dioceses that formed the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion when we were separated from the West Africa, the province of West Africa. We had 16 bishops, 16 chancellors, 16 registrars.
Registrars.
Today, we are talking of 163 or even 64 dioceses. We have some missions abroad, Convocation of Anglicans in North America, where I serve as chairman of the board of trustees. And then we at some point we had a mission in Congo, and then we have the nomadic mission. So, as registrar, you could imagine from serving 16 dioceses in your capacity as registrar on essentially legal issues to now 165, 64, 65. So that had posed a great challenge. Now, you'll find you now had to have 165 chancellors, 165 registrars, 165 legal officers. Some of these had never had any training as church lawyers. Some of them didn't even know about the constitution and the traditions and the customs of the church. So, whereas each diocese is supposed to have their own registrar and chancellor, you'll find that it now became my responsibility to guide some of these people on their functions, on their responsibilities. Some people thought that being a chancellor or registrar is just that ceremonial thing whenever there is a consecration or there is ordination or there is some ceremony, then you just robe and join the queue behind the bishop and all that. No, it's a lot more than that. And so that's the first challenge. Instead of doing my work in the headquarters as Registrar of the Church of Nigeria, I had to be attending to issues from these dioceses. And that is what, in consultation with the present primate, led to the establishment of this Conference of Chancellors, Registrars, and Legal Officers of the Church. That conference brings together all the chancellors, all the registrars, and all the legal officers of the church. And what do? First of all, we teach ourselves what our duties are. We get the older chancellors, the older bishops, the older archbishops to come and talk to us about the relationship between, say, the chancellors and the legal officers of the church and the bishop, the relationship and functions and duties and responsibilities of the legal officer of the church and the diocese, and then the Church of Nigeria as a whole. It has been a very, very rewarding experience. We had the 9th edition this year, and it's been a very, very good thing. It has also brought us together as a family. The legal officers of the church will now relate as a family. So the challenge of large numbers is one of the great challenges we have had. Of course, you know what also goes with it. When there were just 16 bishops, issues where there were misunderstanding or disagreements were quickly resolved by them. So where you had 16 voices, you now have 116 voices. Then there has been a drop in the general age of the House of Bishops. We now have the younger, very more educated people, PhD professors and all that. And of course, you know, in these modern times, those also want to have their say, even if the majority have their way. Again, these are things that you must have to handle carefully. Thank God for Primate Oko, who has the patience, the discipline, the understanding to handle issues.
Now, in terms of functionality, what's the difference between a registrar of a diocese and a chancellor?
Good. At the diocesan level, the registrar is the legal officer that keeps custody of all legal documents, like land title documents, and prepares all these agreements, goes to court. The chancellor is the chief legal advisor at the top there, but the registrar actually does most of the legal work, and there's an office, there's a registry, there's a chancellor where you keep documents, advise the the bishop at the diocesan level. And at the diocesan level, both are appointed by the bishop. That is, both the registrar and the chancellor are appointed by the bishop. And they hold office at the pleasure of the bishop. That is, he can remove them at any time, and he can keep them. what normally happens is that your service is for a synod, which at the diocesan level has 3 sessions, 3 years. At the beginning of a new synod, what the bishop does is either to retain the people there by making a pronouncement of retaining these officers, or he appoints new ones. But this is renewed after every 3 years. Like you said, I've served for about 20-something years as chancellor. Every year, my bishop makes a pronouncement that I'm retaining Barrister Issa as my chancellor. That means a fresh appointment. And the next 3 years again, that lapses. If he wants to retain you, he does the same. Yes.
So this position, is it for people who, or let me say, is it stipendary?
No, it's non-stipendary.
Okay.
It's non-stipendary, and I know that in some dioceses they have budget to help if the chancellor or the registrar has to do a lot of travels and all that, but it's not a salaried job.
Okay.
And most of the chancellors do this at their own. Most of them fund their own trips. Most of them fund.
So at the Church of Nigeria level, how does it work?
At the Church of Nigeria level, the chancellor is appointed by the Bishop of Abuja.
Okay.
The Bishop of Abuja is also the Archbishop of Abuja province.
Okay.
The Archbishop of Abuja province is also the primate of the Church of Nigeria. So by one election, when you elect a primate today, he then wears these 3 caps. Now that Chancellor of Abuja Diocese doubles as the Chancellor of the Church of Nigeria. By virtue of his being appointed as Chancellor of Abuja Diocese, he now acts as Chancellor of the Church of Nigeria.
Okay.
But the Registrar of the Church of Nigeria is elected by the entire church.
Oh, okay.
Is elected.
It's not, the primate doesn't pronounce that?
No.
Okay.
He is elected at the General Synod. Okay. At the beginning of every General Synod, the Registrar is elected. So in my own case, it's just that I've been represented, re-elected, represented, re-elected, represented, re-elected. And so he is the registrar of the Church of Nigeria to protect not just the primate now, but you see both the laity and the clergy and the bishops have a hand in his election. So he's there as the legal officer for the entire church.
So the registrar for Diocese of Abuja only
it's only
for
the Diocese of Abuja.
So there's a registrar for Diocese.
There is a registrar for Diocese of Abuja, just like we have for every other diocese.
Okay.
But the registrar,
the chancellor is not the chancellor of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So that I think that clears it. Now the tenure of Primate Oko is rounding up, and hopefully new primates will be elected at the next standing committee in September. Now, the first thing, can you tell us about Primate Oko? I've been working with him for 10 years now.
No, I've worked with Primate Oko for more than 10 years.
Okay.
I started working with Primate Oko when he was Archbishop of Bendel Province. Baba Primate Oko, Akinola, when we decided to go into America, and that was my first challenge when this issue of same-sex or human sexuality was tearing our church apart globally. Nigerians in America and Canada and elsewhere could no longer cope with the attitude of the Episcopal Church.
Okay.
And some of the churches in Canada and of late even in the United Kingdom. And they appealed to the bishops of Church of Nigeria that, look, we can't stand what is going on now. This revisionist attitude. You can imagine going to church in the morning to find a man being married to a man or a woman being married to a woman. To the Orthodox Christian, it is disgusting. And then what will you be, legacy will you be leaving for the children when it is very clear in the Bible, I think in the book of Genesis, that
a man shall
marry a woman, not the other way. And indeed, if you look at the law books like Deuteronomy, it is very clear that if you committed that thing, it was stoning to death. So they now appealed, and in one of the standing committees we had in Elisha, the House passed a resolution authorizing Primate Akinola to give episcopal oversight to those Nigerian Anglicans that feel estranged by the attitude of the
Episcopal
Church. In between that standing committee resolution and the next general synod, Sir Gimuamu died, who was the registrar. Of course, I was in that. I was also working closely with him in other committees and subcommittees. It was very fantastic gentleman. And when I became registrar, I looked at that provision, and I looked at the resolution, and I looked at our constitution. And I now advise that, look, we needed to amend our constitution if we were to go into America. Because globally, in the Anglican Communion, no primate can go into another province and begin to do evangelical work without understanding of both of them, either they partner to do it. But there's a fundamental difference now between us and America. And we were not going there to partner with them, really. We are going there to retrieve souls that were estranged. So we had to amend Section 3 of our Constitution, which provided that our relationship with America was then determined by our relationship with the Archbishop of Canterbury. That is, if we are in communion with Canterbury, we are then necessarily in communion with. So what did we do? Of course, at that point, we were not going to break communion with Canterbury. But we just amended to say that our relationship with any other province, any other church, any other diocese was not going to be dependent on our relationship with Canterbury, but dependent on the truth of the Bible. The truth of the Bible. And so the Section 3 was amended. That amendment now allowed us to go into America to take care of people that were estranged. It was originally designed for Nigerians. But when we got there, we saw that there were many other groups that also felt estranged, especially after the consecration of Jane Robinson, a self-confessed gay, as a bishop, in spite of all the cries that were made. The Episcopal Church went ahead and consecrated him. So when we went there, it was supposed to be convocation for Nigerian Anglicans. But we realized that we had to carry others along. And so the name became Convocation of Anglicans in North America. Okay. So that body was established with Bishop Martin Means as the first bishop. Sure. And I, chairman of the Board of Trustees of the convocation.
So what was the role of a primate? You were talking about Primate Oko in this.
Primate Oko, when we started, Baba Akinola said, Registrar, we are collecting no kobo from these people. We are not going there to look for money. If we go there, we will sponsor ourselves. We will pay our air ticket, we will pay our hotel bills, we will pay for our own food and our own movement. Because other people that went there because of the money they were getting from them. And Primate Akinola insisted. He now said, approach some bishops and archbishops who can go with us. Primate Oko was one of them. He was then the Archbishop of Bender, province, and Bishop of Asaba. So for several years before he became primate, we had been traveling to America every year. For them, they ordained to give episcopal oversight to our churches. We went around over 14 states in the United States of America, and we had churches scattered all over America. And so they followed us, and they performed their episcopal functions, participated in their synods, and advised the clergy and all that. So I worked with him. I knew him close before he became primate. When he became primate, well, of course, this is a person I already know. And so I didn't have any difficulty adjusting this. One clear attribute of Primate Oko is discipline. And I think maybe because he was a soldier, he is very, very disciplined. When it comes to timekeeping I'm sure you are here in the headquarters. It's either you are there or you are not there, but he's there. And I have seen him handle a few cases, and his discipline stand, no matter how much it will hurt you, but he would rather go by what the law says. And even if it will mean finding other palliatives to help whoever feels hurt, but he will insist that we comply with the law. He's a family man. I came close to the family. His wife is quite understanding and very humble. Primate Oko himself is very humble. And as a father, his approach to issues of the church is very, very pastoral. Even when a priest or some bishop is accused of something, you say, no. You know, let us take this thing gradually. Let us be patient. It will not breed anything negative if we are patient. So his approach has always been reach out to whoever it is. See what the problems are. See how you can provide a solution, so that you don't end up throwing the man out of office and you are losing a soul also. So that is Primate Oko for you. And he's, I don't want to use the word frugal. To get a couple out of him, I'm sure you in ACNN, you know what I'm talking about. He wants to be sure that church money is spent for church work, and the accountability is strictly this thing. I've seen 1 or 2 occasions where I got angry with people that were trying to be funny with funds. He will not take it at all. So he's a father.
Now, let's take these 2 questions together. What are the processes as registrar? What are the processes involved in election of bishops and now that of primate?
Even archbishops.
Yes.
Now, let's start with bishops. And when I finish explaining, you can see that the Anglican Church has a fantastic method, process, and procedure. Indeed, I will tell you, the democracies of the world you know today derived from the Anglican practice and Anglican method. To go to your question,
yes.
When there is a vacancy in any see, that is in any diocese, either by death, by retirement, or by whatever, the primate writes to a committee that we call Diocesan Advisory Committee. Every diocese has that committee. It is made up of clergymen and laity. The chancellor in most dioceses, the chancellor of the diocese is the chairman of that committee. And he would then write to the chancellor or the chairman that they should hold a meeting of that committee and recommend to the House of Bishops the kind of person, the qualification of person, and attributes of kind of person they want as a bishop. Now, that committee has no bishop in it because it's at the diocesan level, and at the time they are doing it, there is no bishop because there is a vacancy already. That committee meets, and the Constitution says your recommendation must not name names. You will give the man's qualification. If he has a PhD, if he's a professor, if he, whatever other qualification, you state that is the kind of qualification you want. In some urban dioceses, they will tell you they want somebody who has a PhD. Of course, that may not be true of rural dioceses. However, the diocesan committee states that the qualification and, of course, other characteristics. More often than not, the provision for appointment an overseer, that provision in Timothy, is usually quoted. My husband or one wife, he must not be given to drunkenness, he must not be this, he must not. They are all this. And then they write their report to the primate. That this is the kind of person we want. In some areas, for instance, you have a diocese where 99% of them speak one particular language. They may have to include that the new bishop should have knowledge of that language to be able to operate. I know of places where their liturgy is completely in vernacular. You understand? Baptism is done in vernacular, confirmation is done in vernacular. Even the services are done in their own. So one won't be surprised in an advice to say he should have knowledge of the predominant language spoken in the area. And just that's just an example. So that advice is taken to the primate. The primate circulates that advice to the bishops.
Okay.
That this place there is a vacancy. This is the kind of person the people want to be elected their bishop. When that has been done, there is an episcopal synod. That is a synod of the bishop, where the election is done. And the election is done by bishops and bishops alone.
Okay.
It doesn't stop there. Again, of course, our constitution says a bishop can be elected from a priest of the Church of Nigeria. It didn't say a priest of any diocese.
Okay.
A priest from among the priests of the Church of Nigeria.
Okay.
So a priest is elected bishop. After that election, the first thing the primate does is to contact the person. You have been elected bishop of Diocese A. Do you want or you don't want? If the man says I want, the primate moves to the next stage. If the man says I don't want, the primate reports back to the house and another election is conducted. After the man has accepted, the primate sends the notice of the election of that man to be pasted in the cathedral of the church or the diocese where the man is going, to ask them to look at it and see whether they have any objection to the man elected. Now the election is now again subject not just even to this committee now, but to the entire congregation to say, this man has been elected, do you have any objection? Of course, the constitution says the objection must be canonical. I mean, you can't go and say he quarreled with you 50 years ago, and therefore you should know. But for instance, if he has not been a priest for 6 years,
Okay.
he cannot be elected. If he has 2 wives, he cannot. So these are the ones we call canonical.
Okay.
And if there is any objection, the primate looks at those objections, of course, with his advice of his chancellor and registrars and legal team and other bishops. He looks at it. If they are canonical, he will not confirm the election.
Okay.
If they are not canonical, he will go ahead to confirm the election. And that is when you can then proceed to consecrate the bishop. When you consecrate the bishop, you then go to his diocese to go and enthrone him. So that is for diocesan bishop. Let's move to archbishop. There is a similar committee, but in the case of archbishop, it is the entire province. And the province is made up of a group of dioceses. Some have 12, some 11, some 13. Now, the archbishop of an ecclesiastical province is like the chairman, or is the chairman of the archbishop of the council. He is like the number 1 bishop of the bishops.
In
just
that
like
province.
the chairman that presides over their meeting. There is a similar committee that does that, gives only qualification, not qualifications and attributes, not names. That is also taken to the primate, who now shares it among the entire house of bishops. The house of bishops does the election, even if it is for a diocese, even if it is from a province. The only thing is that the archbishop of a province is usually elected from among the bishops of that province. So the archbishop of a province is also a bishop of his own diocese, and an archbishop in the province. So as usual, after complying with all that, election is made
in the House of Bishops,
the House of Bishops
of the Church of Nigeria.
Church of Nigeria.
Okay, not the province.
No, not the province.
Okay.
Not the
The
small
whole-
it's the entire Church of Nigeria synod, Episcopal synod.
Okay.
And once he is elected, of course, the usual thing, the primate will also tell him, you'll be elected. Do you want it? If he doesn't want, then they look for another person. If he wants, then he's presented.
Okay.
He's presented. This time he's already a bishop, so there is no consecration.
Okay.
This time he already has his own diocese, so there is no enthronement. He's just presented in an episcopal gathering. You can see that in some cases it's during standing committee that is done. But if there is another service, like the last one we had in Lagos, where the bishops of Kenya were consecrated. You know, there were 2 presentations. The Archbishop of Lokoja province and the Archbishop of Enugu province were presented there. That is how it is done for archbishops.
So to the primate?
Primate. In the case of the primate, you also have Church of Nigeria Advisory Committee.
Okay.
That is what that committee is called. In the province, it's provincial. In the diocese, it's diocesan. The Church of Nigeria Advisory Committee is a similar body to the ones we've just talked about. But this one is made up of 1 lay member each from every diocese. Not that we say we are having 165 dioceses, that means 165 lay, 165 clergy, no bishop. The primate or the dean, as the case may be, writes to say to each bishop that send us the list of those that you have elected. Now, mind you, this lay and clergy are also elected for their own provinces by their own province. Okay. At the beginning of every synod, these committees are filled up by election of people to it. So a meeting is called of all of them. Say, look, there is a vacancy, or a vacancy will soon exist. The primate is about to retire. Give us the qualities and qualification of the kind of person that you want to be a primate. And they write it down. When they have finished at the end of the day, not naming names again, they will now send one of them at the meeting of the bishops to present that recommendation. That the clergy and the laity of the Church of Nigeria, as represented by each of these delegates, have resolved that this shall be the quality and qualification of the primate that you are about to elect. It is the House of Bishops that does the election. But in doing the election, they must take the advice, they look at the advice from both the laity and the clergy. I say so, the committee is called Church of Nigeria Advisory Committee, but I'm mentioning the people who compose of that committee. They are representatives of the laity and the clergy of every diocese of Nigeria. And they now make their own presentation. The primate now shares that to all the archbishops. I mean, all the bishops and archbishops, and then the election is done. In the election is again done by only the bishops. The only person there who goes just for one purpose is the registrar, who presides at that election.
Okay.
And there is provision that there can be 4 nominations from among all the bishops.
Okay, not an archbishop.
No.
Okay.
4 nominations from every bishop is entitled to contest.
Oh.
So we get 4 nominations. It is preceded by Holy Communion, then the reading of the advice, then the election proper. And we are allowed to do it 3 or 4 times. If you don't arrive at getting 2/3 majority, you are adjourned for that day. And then again, the following day, communion is held, and you try. The man that emerges must get 2/3 majority of the votes. So you will see that if you look at 2/3 of 165, that means it's generally accepted by the entire church. Yeah.
Oh, let's take this break, then we continue with some of the few questions we have. We've been talking with the Registrar of the Church of Nigeria, Barrister Abraham Yisa. Join us after this short break. Thank you.
Ajayi Crowther University admission has commenced. Programs on offer include undergraduate, postgraduate, part-time, HND conversion, foundation and pre-degree in faculties of law, humanities, education, natural sciences, social sciences, and management sciences. Our tuition is affordable and payable in 3 installments. Visit the university website at www.acu.edu.ng for online application, screening, and admission letter. Given our state-of-the-art facilities, facilities, well-equipped library, decent learning environment, and distinguished lecturers. Apply now by logging on to www.acu.edu.ng. For details, call 0814-592-0637. Ajayi Crowther University, raising godly intellectuals.
All right, thank you. It's been nice having Barrister Abraham Yisa on The Exclusive this week. And we've been talking about different things that are based on legal issues within the Church of Nigeria. Sir, you've expatiated on how bishops are elected, archbishops, and now the primates. Over time, some of these things has led to crises in some places, a lot of internal squabbles around, and then maybe can you just tell us specifically some of these recommendations from dioceses? Some of them are now based on ethnicity, and possibly it must come from a...
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, what you have said is true to some extent in the church, which shouldn't be. In Christ, there is neither east nor west. And when the creation of diocese started, that was the beginning of our problem. I mean, after the decade of evangelism, and then we had this creation. People started saying they must elect our own to be bishop. Whereas I've told you the Constitution of the Church of Nigeria says a bishop shall be elected from among the priests.
Within the Church of
Within
Nigeria.
the church. Now, you want to compel the primate or the House of Bishops to elect your own son and for your own diocese. But that your own sons that are serving as bishops in other people's dioceses. Secondly, it is not in accordance with the spirit of our Constitution. You are serving Christ. You are a priest. You can serve anywhere. But that has been one of the causes of our challenges. I'm telling you, in some cases, it goes to when you elect for a particular diocese, they will say it must be from a particular local government. You understand what I'm saying? Because there are dioceses that cover... I am talking of where the people speak the same language. They are of the same ethnic group. You have elected somebody from their area, and they come up and say, no, the person must be, this is not constitutional. And so these are some of the crises that we have. And usually they come up, unfortunately, we appear to be following the pattern of the secular world. And we should be the alternative to the secular. We are the light of the world. In the secular world, you know the hula balu and hara you have every year of election. Now, in the secular world in Nigeria, where the election has come, somebody has been declared winner, the next thing is decamping. People are now decamping back and then sharing of offices and all that. Unfortunately, this is rearing its ugly head in the church. So quite a number of problems and challenges we have following these elections just because of that. People that were homogeneous, they were one diocese, they speak the same language. Now, because of the furtherance and growth of the work of God, they now choose to give you a diocese. They say they can't sit together again. They are married to each other. Their children are married. But when it comes to church administration, they cannot. It's sad, it's unfortunate. But it is true that it is happening.
But some of these issues have been also channeled to people in your profession who are registrars, chancellors of dioceses, as they are seen as those who push for some of these issues.
The registrars and the chancellors will tell you that there are not those who have been pushed from somewhere. But it's not even an issue of just, sometimes they use the laity. Sometimes allegations are made that it is some of the bishops themselves or even the priests that instigate this thing. Well, I'm not in a position to confirm any of that. But I can tell you that we have these challenges, as you mentioned. And if these challenges are there, somebody must be responsible for it. I am not saying that we can't complain when we feel aggrieved about something, but let's do it as Christians. Let's do it as the Bible has prescribed. I mean, can you imagine taking the church to court when there are dispute resolution mechanisms enshrined in the Constitution? Then you think of a situation where somebody is aggrieved by the conduct of maybe a priest or maybe his parochial church council, PCC, or that, then you take the primate to court without exhausting all the provisions made for dispute resolution in the Constitution.
So is it that people are losing trust in the dispute resolution?
No, it's the general. No, not dispute. They don't even use it. It's when you are using something and it doesn't work that you complain. The person who should have first of all gone to the PCC or to the bishop who will set up a committee to look into his case and advise the bishop on how to handle it. He didn't go through all these methods. Just went straight to court. Is it not when you use something and it doesn't satisfy you, you will say you lose trust? And it shouldn't be happening in the church, because the secular world looks to the church for dispute resolution. When even at the topmost level, the president will call the religious leaders because they wield a lot of influence on the people of this country.
Now, I know you are in different courts, but there is one that's possibly of recent we heard of, you know, as media we do hear a lot of things at times. Yourself, the primate, the chancellor, and the dean were taken to court based on what the person said, that there was an injection into the constitution illegally.
Okay, since the matter is in court, it's what we lawyers say, it is now sub judice. So we have to be very careful about the comments we make on a matter that is already before the court.
Yeah, but
especially if those comments will touch on the issues that have been taken to the court to determine.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? However, I want to confirm to you that somebody has gone to court to challenge a proviso to a section of the Constitution of the Church of Nigeria that provides for the office, establishment, tenure, and office of the dean. It was an amendment we passed in Port Harcourt. Now, what is he challenging? There is a proviso that says that provided that the dean and the primate shall not be eligible from the same province.
Okay.
That's just the proviso, that once the primate is from this province, elect a dean from another province.
Okay.
That is what they are challenging.
Out of the
but
14
the basis,
provinces?
any.
Okay.
I mean, just that you shouldn't put the two of them from one province. That is just what it says. And I hear people say it is North versus South. The North has 4 provinces. Abuja, Jos, Kaduna, and Lokoja. And what they're saying is that don't pick the primate from Jos province and pick the dean from Jos province.
Okay.
Now, his province is not state.
Okay.
It's not south or north. There are so many other provinces in the southwest. There are so many other provinces. And I think what informed it may be the practice that has been on. When Olufosoye was primate, I don't know who, that is Wankiti or somebody who was the dean. When Adetiloye was primate, it was Wankiti, I think, that was the dean. When Akinola became the primate, it was Baba Anekwenwa that was this, just an understanding and perhaps to reflect the Nigerianness in us. If not, you can say maybe the dean, you Korede can become the primate and your brother can become the dean. Once you are doing the work of God, what does it matter? But then you must take into consideration the peculiar Nigerian situation which has crept into the church. Now, why are they challenging it? They said the normal procedure is to send all proposed amendments round. Then whatever comments people make is returned to the committee of reference, which is the statutory committee established by the Constitution to advise the church on amendments and other things. They collate what has been returned, and then the final product is taken to the General Synod. The allegation is that what was sent to the dioceses is different from what was approved by the General Synod. I won't make more comment than that because that's the issue for the court to decide.
Well, I think we can also now, I think maybe that has taken care of the question I was about asking on the issue of electing dean and primates from different provinces. Because the understanding some people have is possibly from between the south and
that
the
is
north.
the mistake some people, you see, there is no north and south recognized in our constitution. Before the present set of provinces we had what we call Province 1, Province 2, and Province 3.
Okay.
Province 1 covered the entire southwest plus Lagos. Province 2 covered the entire southeast, and the Province 3 was the north. So in the past, if the primate is from Southwest Province 1, the dean, by arrangement, not constitution, by understanding of the bishops themselves, will come from Province 2. Now we can't even talk of Province 1, Province 2, Province 3, because it's no longer in our constitution. The only thing we can talk of is these 14 provinces.
Okay.
So you can't say the primate must come from the north or the east or the west, and the dean must come from the north or the east or the west, as the case may be. There is no provision like that in our constitution. So some people, that is the misunderstanding, and I hope our people get it clear that nobody is talking about north and south.
So I think before now, the office of the dean has always been a short
Prior
period.
to now, it wasn't just that it was a short period. The most senior archbishop by presentation was the dean. So you didn't even have to do any election. Once this one retires, the next most senior archbishop is just presented as the dean, and it is by presentation. I told you about how archbishops, when elected, that the seniority comes from presentation. Now it was okay when we had three provinces, 1, 2, and 3. It was okay because we had only 3 of them. One is already a primate. So among the other 2, but you've moved on to 14 provinces. And the elections of this presentation of this archbishop is not the same time. So 1 year we had 4 deans. Because once the man ceases to be an archbishop, he ceases to be dean. The next person, maybe the next person is only 1 year or 3 months or 6 months that is in between. So there was a high turnover of deans. And our fathers in the Lord felt that no, this shouldn't be now. The dean, after all, only operates like the deputy primate. That's all. It's not that there's a specific office of the dean. No. The man is bishop in his own diocese. He's archbishop in his own province. The primate may call him and say, come and do this assignment, come and do this assignment. Or when the primate is not in office, he can act as primate. You understand? Right now, as I'm talking, there is no office there. Physically said, this is the office of the dean. There is even no budget for it. So that was when it was now resolved that, look, let us make a provision that will make this thing last. Instead of having 3 every year. 3 every year. So they now said it should be elected. It's for a 5-year single term. That's the position now. And that, of course, the amendment now went ahead to say, okay, if he is from this province, I mean the primate, because that provision is about the primate. It is not about the dean. If the primate is from this province, let the dean come from another province.
Out of the 14.
Out of the 14.
Okay. So I think that grabs it. Yeah, the election is coming up very soon.
By the grace of God.
Now, so what are the plans ahead?
Well, when you say plans, I don't know what you mean, but what normally happens is just to follow the constitution.
Okay.
The primate will send a letter that the Church of Nigeria Advisory Committee should sit and meet.
And has that been done?
No.
Okay.
We are not out of time, so to say.
Okay.
The Constitution says the primate should be elected not later than 3 months to the end of his tenure. Secondly, after the primate has received the report, he will circulate it amongst, and he will call a meeting of the bishops for the election of the primate. And it doesn't necessarily have to be during the session of the General Synod or the Standing Committee. I think what happened in the past was to save costs. Most of the members of that advisory committee are also members of the standing committee.
Okay.
So what happened is that call them to that meeting a day or two before, then proceed to the standing committee. Of course, you know the cost of hosting these things. If not, there's nowhere in the Constitution states that it must hold during a standing committee or so. The election of Primate Akinola took place here in Abuja. It was originally slated to take place in Kaduna.
Okay.
There was no synod then. There was no standing committee. It was just Episcopal synod. Because of crisis in Kaduna, we had to get our bishops out of Kaduna, and they held the election at All Saints. So that is it. So long as it is done not later than 3 months, it's okay. And what precedes it is the advice of the advisory committee.
So what's your advice to the clergy and laity now? What should they be expecting?
What I have been doing is to continue to fast and pray that God should give the Church of Nigeria a leader that will take our church to the next level. That has been my prayer, and that's what I recommend to every true Anglican. It is not about the person. It is about our church. It is not about any individual. It is about the church of God. And believe you me, Korede, whether you and I are there or not, the church of God will march on. So let no ambition of anybody stand in the way of God, of Christ.
Now, can we just quickly take you, in April, the primate of the ACNN and Church of Nigeria signed an agreement on the Cana dioceses. What were the issues? And what was the details of this agreement?
Maybe I should give you a brief about what ACNA and the relationship between ACNA, Anglican Church in North America,
Yes.
and Cana, Convocation of Anglicans in North America. Yeah. Cana is the baby of the Church of Nigeria, established by the Church of Nigeria to cater for Nigerian Anglicans and other Anglicans in America. Because of the deepening rift and crisis between the Episcopal Church and Canada and other places, because rather than repent from their stand of ordaining gay priests, licensing gay people and all that, they continue to do it. In fact, at some point, somebody was saying they were trying to even do a liturgy for the burial of dogs. I don't know how correct that is, don't quote me. But what I'm saying is that we were unable to come together. And then the resolution of the Lampent Conference that the Archbishop of Canterbury should discipline erring members that failed to comply with that resolution was not carried out to the letter. Therefore, the Church of Nigeria and other provinces that were on the same side on these issues established GAFCON, Global Anglican Future Conference. The first meeting was in Jerusalem. The next one was in Kenya. The last one, which was just last year, also back in Jerusalem. Now there were spots of dioceses or churches in America that did not belong to TEC, the Episcopal Church. But they needed to come together as a province. So the Church of Nigeria provided necessary leadership by the primates of GAFCON that they should establish the ACNN, Anglican Church, as a province. And that is what they did. When they did that, the relationship between Cana and ACNA was that we were partnering together. Some people say we have dual nationality. Cana bishops were bishops of Church of Nigeria. There were other bishops from other places in ACNA. So our bishops will sit in the Episcopal Synod or Standing Committee, General Synod,
When we have it, all the bishops in Canada and America come here because they are bishops of the Church of Nigeria. But they also sit in the House of Bishops of ACNN. You understand? Now, one of the dioceses is Kenya East, whose population were largely white, felt that they should just go ahead and join ACNN. Still the same partnership. The other two has largely Nigerian congregations, and they were happy with the arrangement. So in a meeting which we held in the United States, precisely in Houston this year, it was resolved that we should continue to partner in the gospel, in evangelism, and so on. However, for administrative purposes, those that want to remain permanently with ACNN can go. Those who want to remain here can stay. And it is only Kenya East under Julian Dobbs that went. The rest, they are. But there is a clear-cut provision that we shall partner in there. So we will still continue to do the work of God together. But for administrative purposes, these are bishops of Church of Nigeria. Whether you are in Canada or you are bishops of the Church of Nigeria. So that's just it.
Okay. So it's not like there is an issue that...
No. Okay. The ACNN is still... ACNN is our baby. I mean, when I say our baby, Nigeria and GAFCON primates put ACNN together, and I understand that even Canterbury has now recognized the ACNN and recognized their bishop, and is likely going to invite him to Lambeth Conference if they go. But just some administrative rearrangement, if you might put it that way.
So, GAFCON, since you've even mentioned it, 2018 edition, can you just tell us your experience?
Oh, you were there. It was fantastic. And I must praise that GAFCON choir. They were fantastic. They impressed everybody. But the most important thing was that team, taking the gospel to all nations, something like that. Yes. You saw the zeal with which people worshipped. You saw even how our leaders exposed the Bible, the teaching. There was excitement. People were happy. I think it's one of the best things that ever happened. And the good thing about GAFCON is that it is attended by everybody. The lay, the clergy, the bishops.
It's not just the
Lambeth Conference is just the bishops.
So lastly, let's go into the conference of the chancellors that just finished in Abuja for 2019. What are the resolutions that were taken? I mean, if you can just take us on the high points of the event.
Okay, but let me also say that one of the greatest things that happened to this church, especially the legal officers, is the establishment of that body. And we thank the primate for his cooperation, for approving it. For every year, primate is there to have primate's time, and that of this year was the best. We even overshot our time that we fixed because people enjoyed interacting with the primate. Questions that were in people's mind that were maybe bishops couldn't answer them in their dioceses, and all challenges they are having as legal officers, they were able to talk to the primate. Primate was able to explain all that to him. One, subject to the incoming primate, we resolved that we will continue with that conference in Abuja. We talked about national issues, the election. Well, that's the communique. I don't know whether you have it.
Not yet.
But you've got it?
No.
Okay, please remind me. Let me give you a copy of the communique.
All right.
Usually we issue these communiques which contains the highlights and resolutions of the meeting. And our main concern actually is usually the internal of our own conference, the focus, and our contribution to the church. It talks about things like even seniority, how we behave ourselves. Do you know that something as small as procession into the church also featured in our listing? We thank God there were archbishops, there were bishops who were able to guide us when it comes to spiritual issues. But our concentration was on our work. Our destiny was contending for the faith, as in Jude. Now, contending to the faith, for the faith as delivered, as once delivered by the saints, as a chancellor, as a legal officer, as a, do your work as a legal officer. By so doing, you are contending for the faith of Jesus Christ. That was the lead. Yes.
So, did you also now try to talk about issues in different dioceses? Are these also part of what is being done at the...
Well, that body is not actually competent
Okay.
to go into real issues.
Okay.
But dioceses, we take cases and say, for instance, this is what happened in Owerri Diocese. And we explain to them that this is what happened, so that you as the chancellor of a diocese can be guided in case such a thing comes up. And there, the duties and functions in your diocese. Why should somebody leave your diocese and go and sue the Church of Nigeria? What did you do about it? Did you interact with the person? Is he part of you? Did you let him know that there were other mechanisms, dispute resolution mechanisms, instead of just going to start from the court? When the Bible says that even if your brother offends you, go to him first and tell him you've offended me. If you refuse, you say, take witnesses again and go back. So these are the kind of things we discuss. Since our body is not competent to go into dispute resolution or listen to cases of challenges, but we discuss such challenges with a view to arming ourselves just in case such a thing comes up in your own diocese. You know and you are guided on what to do.
Thank you very much, Barrister Abraham Yisa, who is the Registrar for the Church of Nigeria. We appreciate your comments, sir.
Thank you.
And we always appreciate coming here at any time we call upon you, because we know that this episode will spring up some other questions from our viewers, which we are going to also gather together and bring you back again, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming, sir.
Thank you, and I wish ACNN, you are doing a great job in ACNN. You are doing the communion proud, and we hope we'll take you to the next level of the church.
Oh. The next level of the church, yes. Thank you. Until we meet again, possibly at the next level of the church, yes. As Barrister Isa has said, not the less level has been said otherwise. We are going to bring another interesting episode to you. Almost every month we have this special interview with dignitaries in the church. Same time, same station, will always be with you. God bless you.